Hi to everyone. I am Emanuele from Italy, Evil Dead Italia. This is the very first live in which I'm going to collaborate with another guy from another, let's say, community on Facebook. His name is Michael, and he is the administrator of Army of Darkness and Evil Dead comics page. We are going this evening to have the honor to present both writer and the illustrator of this magnificent comic, that is Army of Darkness versus Bubba Ho-Tep. Thanks to Michael that put me in touch with the other guys. So without any further ado, I'm going to present you Michael Spad, that is the administrator of Army of Darkness and Evil Dead comics. Hello, Michael. How are
Good
you?
morning. Hello. Or should I say good
Hello.
afternoon? Good evening.
Yes, yes. A little note: we are all on very different time zone. So for me, is late night. For Michael, is early morning. I suppose that for
Early in the
Scott
morning.
will be the afternoon. So
Yeah.
let's say, can you talk a little bit about you, Michael, about your passion for comics, for Evil Dead, and so on?
Sure thing. Oh, well, my name is Michael. Friends call me Spud, though. I've always loved horror movies, I've, ever since I was a little kid. Uh, the first comic series I collected was the Freddy versus Jason versus Ash series back in 2008. Collected that when it came out, and then over the next decade, I kept collecting Army of Darkness comics here and there. But it wasn't until COVID restrictions struck Australia in March of 2020 that I decided, well, I have to stay home. I'm going to start ordering the comics that I don't have and filling the gaps in my collection. So I started doing that, and I pretty much accomplished that earlier this year. I've managed to track down every issue, every graphic novel. I created the Facebook page Army of Darkness and Evil Dead Comics a year ago, nearly a year ago later this month. Mainly because, unlike other comic book properties, there wasn't a dedicated social media presence to Ash Williams and his comic book exploits. So I did that, and we've now got over 1,000 followers, and I'm really grateful for the support, guys. It's been amazing.
Cool. So, thank to you. This evening we are going to have Army of Darkness versus Bubba Ho-Tep, comics writer and illustrator. Let's starting presenting Scott Duvall. I hope this is the right pronunciation. Hi, Scott.
Hey,
Uh,
Emmanuel.
it's
How are
a it's
you?
an honor. It's an I'm fine, thank you. It's an honor to have you here. I don't know what hour it is for you. I suppose the afternoon or something like that.
Yeah, it's just 2:30 in the afternoon here, so yeah, just
Okay, so if my the bio I have about you is correct, you are American, obviously, and I've written for a variety of publisher, including Dynamite, EW, Heavy Metal, PC Tricks Comic, Clover Press, and Arcana Studios. So you did a lot of stuff, and you did not only Army of Darkness slash Bubba Ho-Tep, but even an exclusive for Dynamite called Army of Darkness Osh the Author, something like that, if I'm not wrong.
mhm.
So
Ash the
can
author.
you?
Yes, correct. Yeah.
Yes, yeah, okay,
Sorry.
thank you.
Sorry.
No. You can correct me because my English sucks. I'm still
You're
in the
doing great,
process of
Emanuele.
I'm still in the process of improving it. So please
Your
correct
English
me.
is much better than my Italian.
Uh,
Is the thing
Ditto.
that
Exactly.
anyone stop? Thank you very much. So I mean, if I say wrong stuff, wrong pronunciation, please correct me. And what about your relationship with the Evil Dead and Army of Darkness, um, let's say, franchise before you get in touch with it for the comic itself?
Sure. Yeah, it does stem all the way back to childhood. I think Michael and I, Spud, we talked about this previously because I grew up a little bit in Australia. And during that time, I had some cool neighborhood friends who I would always go over to their house and they'd show me all these different movies, introduce me to stuff I'd never seen or heard of before. And one of those things was Army of Darkness, which was actually my entry point into the Adventures of Ash and Evil Dead, and they had made me aware that it was actually the third in a trilogy, but that the first two, Evil Dead and Evil Dead Two, were much more scary. The first one was more horror. The second one was kind of like horror comedy, and the third one was more kind of like a straight comedy, but with horror elements to it. And so that was a really good entry point for me. It really just got me on board immediately. I loved the character. I loved the Deadites. Yeah, I loved everything about it. And so I eventually worked my way backwards. And once I became a teenager, I started to expand my horizons and watch more horror movies. I eventually watched Evil Dead 2 next because everyone had told me that was more or less a glorified remake of the first one. And then eventually I got around to the first one as well, which and I love them all, not necessarily equally, but yeah, Army of Darkness will always hold a very special place for me because it was the first for me.
So that's great. That's great. Before continuing the interview, I'm going to be happy. No, sorry. I'm happy to present you even Vincenzo Visca Federici, that is the illustrator of this comic. Ciao, Vincenzo.
Hi guys. Hi guys. Hi everybody. How are you?
I'm
Good,
fine,
Vincent.
and you? And you?
Fine, fine. Yes,
So
I'm
you
fine.
you you are in Naples right now, or you live in another city of Italy?
No, I'm currently I am in vacation to be honest
Ah,
because
okay.
I'm in this yes, I'm in the south, very south of Italy,
Uh-huh.
in a vacation with my family and so I'm more in south than Naples. Yeah, I am near to Calabria here.
Okay,
And
okay.
yes, and
Uh,
but I'm continuing to work because comic book artist that doesn't have the vacations.
yeah. Well, I have a root in Calabria, so from Silla, that is
Okay, fine.
the infamous. I don't know if you know a little bit of mythology, but is there is the monster in
Yes,
Silla. See, I don't know. Silla Caridi is called in Italian, but I
Chile
don't know.
Caribbean.
Yes, I don't know if it is have some other traduction in translation in English. Is a
Ah,
monster
okay,
from
yes, don't
the,
know.
the Iliad, if I'm not wrong, or from an ancient mythology. There is this monster in this part of the sea, and it's come out to obviously eat the people and destroy ships. So,
Yes,
just to present Federico, Federico obviously is an Italian illustrator. He's from Naples, and let's say he worked on a lot of stuff. For example, for EW, for Dynamite Entertainment, for Dark Horse, for Archie Comic. Now I think he is working on Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles, if I'm not wrong, because I've seen a lot of
yes.
stuff. But obviously, he worked on a lot of stuff. He worked on Red Sonja, Vampirella. I mean, a lot of very famous franchise. And obviously, as we said, he worked on this particular
Yes.
uh, 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 um, comics. So, what is your as I asked to Scott, what is your relationship with the Evil Dead franchise? I mean, you didn't know it before drawing this comic, or you get in touch with it with this experience?
My, my path was the same that Scott told us because I started to know the Evil Dead universe with the Army of Darkness because when I was a kid here in Italy, I saw the movie on the TV by night, and then I was like, oh, wow, that's that's totally crazy because it was very a bit of horror, a bit of fantasy, a bit of something ironic too. So it was something totally new for me. And then I started to retcon everything. Started to watch Devil Dead, Devil Dead 2, and then again the Army of Darkness. So I started from the end, and then I go to the beginning. But maybe my favorite one is the Devil Dead 2, the sequel remake. I don't know, and maybe that is my favorite. Recently, I watched the last one, Devil Dead Rise,
You the rise,
and
yes, yeah.
it was very good to me because I liked the change of environments, of the setup of the story, the fact that the monster was a
Fresh take.
mother, was a woman. Yes, a fresh take. Yes, perfect. It was very cool to me. And then I was asked to work on the series because I started my career in the American industry with Dynamite, but being a filler for Deja Torres series. Then the editor asked me to do some test pages for Garden of Darkness. I did, and who knows why I won. So I was chosen for the series, and I have the luck to meet Scott. We had a great relationship in the work because we had a lot of chats about the script, about the art, and we create something very personal in this way because we had the opportunity to do something that we felt very personal. Okay, that was our take on the Army of Darkness franchise, and then on the Bubble Tap franchise.
Yes,
Yeah.
let's say, um, uh, to connect to what you said, it's pretty enough, fun enough that I recently interviewed the director of Evil Dead Rise, and his favorite movie is Evil Dead 2, right? Like exactly like you. So Evil Dead Do It 2 changed, let's say, a lot of people life in a sort of way, you know.
Yes, yes, yes.
Well,
But
it's
for
hard to
me, it's the
choose.
best. Yes, but for me, it's the best because maybe it's the most impressive of the franchise because it's very horror in some moments, and then it connect the fantasy view with the Army of Darkness in the end of the movie, but
Mhm.
the big part of the movie is very terrifying
Mm.
in my feelings. So I love it for this reason. Is the right mix between horror and between the funny part of
Yeah.
the franchise
Mhm.
that take the better place in the Evil Dead series. That is very
Mm.
funny, very ironic. So
Uh,
I
I
feel
feel
like
that
the Ash character himself really came into himself. It really, the Ash character really developed into what we know today as well in Evil
yes,
Dead 2. The
yes,
tcharacter.
totally.
Hmm.
I,
Yes,
I,
uh,
I fully agree. I fully agree with you. So before leaving the word to Mike, because as I said before, is the expert. So you have more, let's say, let's call it more precise questions to send to you. I have just a more,
Sure. Go ahead. Yeah.
let's say, generic question to you, to both of you. And so regarding these two romance, so the first one is the oh, sorry, this way because it's mirrored. The first one, Bubba Ho-Tep, and the second one, even the prequel, Bubba and the Cosmic Bloodsuckers. How much you have to let's say study these kind of books, this text before starting to work on the script and on the comics? And moreover, if I'm not wrong, but I don't think it's a comic from Dynamite, maybe from IW. There was even a comic about Bubba Ho-Tep and Cosmic Bloodsucker. So I don't know if if it's come before or it's come after. How much in case if it come before, obviously you did have to take, let's say, inspiration or stuff like that. Okay.
Mm, absolutely. I can dive into that. So, Bubba Ho-Tep, the novella that the movie was based on, I had never read prior to getting this job. I, of course, had seen the movie. I love the movie. I'd seen that multiple times. But once I knew I was going to be writing this crossover, I really wanted to do my homework and just research as much as possible on Bubba Ho-Tep and Elvis, and just really get pull as many ideas from that as possible and as much inspiration. So I did go back and read the original novella by Joe R. Lansdale that the movie was based on, and I have to say the movie is a very faithful adaptation of the novella. They use a lot of Joe's words to narrate the story. You hear Bruce Campbell's voiceover throughout, and that's a lot of that's pulled straight from the novella. So it's Joe's words. They didn't really leave too much out. There wasn't much to cut, anyways. It's because it's kind of a short story. The one thing that I was able to pull from the novella that hadn't made it worked its way into the movie was this character called Dillinger, because of course you've got the character JFK, who, you know, he's a man, this older black man who thinks he's JFK, and played by Ozzie Davis in the movie. And there's a character in the novella called Dillinger who thinks it's a woman who thinks she's the gangster John Dillinger. So I knew I needed a character to lead Ash to Elvis, and so instead of creating a brand new character, I thought, oh, why not just pull her from the novella? So that way we're really pulling from the source material and trying to pay tribute to that. As far as the Cosmic Bloodsuckers, I hadn't gotten around to reading the novella of that, but I did read the comic book adaptation that IDW did, and that gave me a lot of inspiration for the person, this version of Elvis that Joe R. Lansdale was writing, what that person was like prior to us meeting them in the original story, Bubba Ho-Tep. And you get to delve into his backstory a little bit more and learn about his crew of people and how the colonel would like send them out on missions and stuff like that. And I thought, like, how cool like is that? I'd love for us to visit that version of Elvis in the story as well. And of course, since Ash is a time traveler, I thought perfect opportunity to take him back in time. And so that way we have Ash contending with a younger Elvis, this version of Elvis from the Bubba Ho-Tep story. So I thought that was a cool way to bring that version of Elvis and kind of pay tribute, a little bit of a nod to the Cosmic Bloodsucker stuff. We didn't touch on it too much, but Vincenzo, you'll remember that scene you drew where it's just like all this, there's like this one big splash page and it's just all this craziness happening and they're fighting these like demons and stuff like that. And so there is definitely a little bit of a tribute paid to that in there. Yeah, so that was kind of the origins of this. Once IDW got the license to Bubba Ho-Tep to publish that, and they did the adaptation of that, and I had been talking to Nick Barucci, the publisher and president over at Dynamite, about doing this crossover for a while. I thought it only seemed natural to pair these franchises and these characters together. And he loved the idea, but he said, but we don't have the license to Bubba Ho-Tep, unfortunately, so we can't really do that. It'd be too much, red tape to get it. And then eventually IDW did get the license, and they'd already been doing comic book company crossovers with Dynamite on a few different things. And so it seemed like the perfect opportunity to email Nick and get in touch and say, hey, somebody does have the Bubba Ho-Tep license. Can we do this now? And at that point, they all kind of said, yeah, if everyone's on board and everyone agrees to it, then we'll publish it. And so that's the birth of how this thing happened.
That's great. And what
Yeah.
about you, Vincenzo? Did you see the movie before? You read the novella? What was your path on this?
When I start to work on this, I was excited to do something on Army of Darkness because, as I told you, it was a huge background for me when I was a child, and then I didn't know that it was a crossover. I discovered this after when I received the script from Scott. So I didn't know about that. So I watched the movie that I really enjoyed, but I never read the novella, and so I based my ideas on the movie. Then I discovered Scott sent me some links about the EDW series, and I started to watch something from there, but just like inspiration about the atmosphere, okay, because the art style it was very different from mine, and then the idea of the Ho-Tep and the cosmic black bloodsuckers was a bit different because it was a bit like something under drugs, under LSD, and our story was really action. Uh, Scott is totally crazy because the most funny part of I guess issue 3 is that Elvis is killing some cockroaches with nunchucks. Then
On the plane.
yes, some blood of cockroach came near to the Elvis mouth, and then he licked the blood. It was disgusting, but I loved it a lot because I guess that Scott was really I don't know really in his comfortable zone with this story. And but my approach with Babotep was just to watch the movie and then read the comics from IDW. Then I did something as I wanted to do. Uh, I thought about how I want to do this young fighting Elvis, and then I proceed like this. Scott loved my work. I loved my work. The publisher loved the work. So it was good for everyone, I guess.
Yeah, I suppose so. So I'm going to pass the, let's say, pass the ball, pass the word to Michael, that is going to go to ask you very specific questions, because he, as I said, the expert of the comics, he's the collector of a lot of this comic, and so I can do more precise questions, more specific ones, and I would love to hear, I mean, what you have to say about. So, Michael, it's your
Sure.
turn to to become the host of the show.
The host. Here we go. Oh, be kind. This is actually my first live ever, so be nice. But no, thank you, Emanuele. Okay, so we did actually cover off on some of the questions I had as far as Dynamite and IDW. So you actually approached them, Scott. You said to about the crossover.
Yes, I was actually an employee at IDW at the time, so I kind of had a little bit of an inside advantage there as far as being able to talk to the right people in order to get this thing in motion. So that helped a lot. Like once IDW secured the license to Bubba Ho-Tep, then this idea I'd had years ago that I never thought was going to actually come to pass became that much more attainable. So it was one of those things I was like, I need to follow up on this. I need to see if I can actually see this thing through, and I'm glad that I did. Yeah, it worked out great.
And here we are.
Yeah, there we are. And if I could just circle back to what Vincenzo was saying before about getting the job, he actually, there was one of two artists that our editor, Kevin Kettner, to give him credit, he had given me their character designs and basically gave me the decision. He's like, I've narrowed it down to these two choices. Here's two artists that we work with that we like. Which one are you leaning towards? And they were both great, but Vincenzo's art jumped out at me immediately as like, oh, this is the perfect guy. Like he's captured the look and the style and just the swagger of both characters, and I just knew that it was going to be yeah, just the perfect look for this series that I was going for. So I was really happy to, because you don't always get the choice of which artist you're working with. Sometimes you're just paired with somebody, but in this case, I was able to at least decide between the two choices given to me, and so I'm so happy that I chose Vincenzo because it worked out so well. And he's the kind of artist that he mentioned before in issue 3, going back to the Cosmic Bloodsuckers thing. That's another thing I drew from that was there were these blue Rococo pills that they were popping, and that was kind of making them see things that weren't there. And he said, oh, in issue 3, which all takes place on Elvis's private jet, because I wanted to kind of have like a bottle episode where it's just like one setting. I thought that would be fun, and just see what kind of crazy antics we can get up to in 20,000 feet in the air. And so he said, I want to draw monsters. I wanted to get crazy with it. So we had the scarabs that we pulled from Bubba Ho-Tep, which were one of the foes. And I thought, what if we, through Ash's visions with the pills, we see them as like these huge monsters, and that will give Vincenzo something really fun to draw. So I'm glad that he pushed me in that direction. He's like, yeah, I want to draw something really crazy. So he really kind of got my juices going as far as like, oh, what kind of craziness can I inject into this thing based on him encouraging me to do so.
That's great. Yeah, and just on that, when Ash takes one of those little blue pills, I love that this been just as the pills kicking in there. So.
Yes.
Oh, hello. Yes. Yeah. So we just had a bit of a cut out there. Cool. Excellent. So yeah, it's not very often that Dynamite do cross over with other publishers as well. They have in the past with IDW with another. I think they did with Danger Girl. I think was IDW if I.
Yeah.
Right.
I think you're right. And I think at the time they had just done like a G.I.
Joe. Very often that they cross over with other publishers.
Yeah, they had just done a G.I. Joe crossover with IDW with their $6 million man property, and so it seemed like it was the perfect time to be like, hey, we're already in a working relationship with them. Let's keep this going. And so going back to, again, the origins of this thing, there was a crossover, not an intercompany crossover, but a crossover between two other Dynamite properties, Army of Darkness, which they cross over with everything at this point, but they did it with Xena, the Warrior Princess. So they had the Xena comics that they crossed over with, which features another Bruce Campbell character, Autocules. And so when I saw the two Bruce Campbell characters on the cover of that facing off with each other, that also sparked the inspiration of like, oh man, someone had the awesome idea to cross over two other Bruce Campbell characters. Why not Bubba Ho-Tep? Why not Elvis? That seems like the natural next fit. And so, yeah, it just took IDW getting the license in order to make that happen.
Excellent. And you mentioned Joe Lansdale. Did he have any involvement, or did you have any discussions with him in the process at all?
Yeah, I had gotten to know Joe a little bit prior to this because I was doing the press, just promotion for his Bubba Ho-Tep and the Cosmic Bloodsuckers comic book adaptations. So I had worked with him on getting quotes from him for the press release and stuff like that. So he kind of knew who I was at that point. But when it came to this crossover, what was so great about it was they basically gave us carte blanche to do whatever we wanted to do. And we didn't get any pushback whatsoever. I was expecting, when you work with a license, that for them to have a lot more notes, or Joe to have more notes about what he wanted to see from it. The only thing he was really concerned about was making sure my name is bigger, on the cover, add my name, Joe R. Lansdale's Bubba Ho-Tep. So that was his biggest concern, was making sure that he got credit. Other than that, I think he was,
there it is, yeah.
which, all credit to him. But I was just so pleased that he didn't say no to anything. he basically was just thrilled to see this happen. I think he was really happy that we were doing it justice in his eyes, and that that was a real motivator for me as well. That gave me a lot of I guess confidence that we're doing a good job. If Joe's signing off on this, then it must be in his eyes worthy of continuing on with this character and these ideas that he had basically put out into the world, and then we were taking it and rolling with it. And so I was really pleased to have his involvement and him signing off on everything. So that made all the difference. And so in my personal headcanon, this is the official sequel to Bubba Ho-Tep. And since he signed off on it and all the licenses did, then I think it should be considered official.
Scott verse.
You have the blessing of the creator.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, so that made it feel like we were doing right by him.
No, that's good. That's good. I'm just getting some connectivity issues. Don't mind me.
No worries.
I love how the introduction of the Necronomicon Ho-Tep kind of provides a further backstory for the mummy. Also ties the two franchises together quite well. So
absolutely,
that was your intention there to sort of to help tie them together with the
I wanted to do something a little different. I feel like the Army of Darkness stories, the comics have made very good use of the Necronomicon, the original Book of the Dead in the series. And I eventually got to play with it myself in the Ash the Author short that you mentioned earlier, Emmanuel. So that was fun. But for this, I wanted to do something a little different, and I thought try and tie it a little bit more into the Egyptian roots of the character, with Bubba Ho-Tep being a mummy. And so I got the Pharaoh suit in there of Elvis's. I really did my Elvis research for this. I watched like a HBO documentary on Elvis. I watched the 68 comeback special. And in my research, I found out that he actually he had many of those suits that he wore, the jumpsuits. But there actually was one called the Pharaoh suit. And because a lot of people ask me like, oh, was that made up? Did you make that up for the story? And I was like, no, that actually existed. So I thought it just felt like a natural fit to have Bubba Ho-Tep put that suit on, and to have, instead of the Necronomicon, to have the Necronomicon Ho-Tep. So it'd be like a what was it, the slab that they've etched into it, with blood and stuff like that. So I thought that was kind of, instead of doing something we've already seen done a million times, like do something a little different, and maybe just like try and advance the story, and just like add some new ideas and elements to the franchise. So, and people seem to dig it, so I was happy with how that turned out.
Absolutely. Vincenzo, I love what you did here. If I can just find it, when Bubba Ho-Tep is first introduced, you kind of recreate, if you can see that there, you recreate the Evil Dead movement. The Evil Dead moving kind of through the woods.
Yes.
Yeah. See, like there. Hi there.
Yes. It was very, very funny and very difficult, because I wanted to give that impression of rapidity. But because when you see the movie, the Evil Dead Force is very fast, is very vibrant. I wanted to recreate something like that, but I didn't know how to do something like this. First thing was to use different angles in every panel to give that sensation of movement. Then I decided to use a different approach to the method to do the panel. I choose to paint the panels. Usually I just do pencil and inks. Okay, but in that panels I decided to use a sort of watercolor paint. Of course, my pages are totally digital, but I used some
Hmm.
special brushes to give the watercolor sensation. And then I used some effect to give a little blur at the border of the images, because if you remember the Devil Dead Force is always a little a blur in the vision. It's not not so clear.
Not clear,
Uh,
not clear. Yeah, yeah.
yes, and I try to have an effect like this. It was a bit difficult at the beginning, because I have to choose the tools to use. Then it was very funny to realize, because at the time I choose the tools, I was free to go forward. And then I was really inspired by some screenshots of the movies,
Hmm.
because I had to stop the image and recognize the details of the effect. And I was very happy with the final result with this.
Mm. Yeah, absolutely. And I think we all were. Just on that
Thank you.
page as well, Scott, I noticed that Bubba Ho-Tep actually rises from Sebastian Haft's grave there. You probably can't see it, but people at home. But at the end of the Bubba Ho-Tep movie, spoiler alert, everybody, you've had time to watch it. The Elvis seemingly dies at the end of the film, and then Bubba Ho-Tep rises from Sebastian Haft's grave. Is that able to be interpreted that Elvis faked his own death again?
Yes, you
Yeah,
got it. Nailed it right on the
yeah,
head.
yeah. Excellent, excellent. Yeah. So they believe that Sebastian was dead and put the mummy pieces in there in his grave.
That's right. Yeah,
Yes.
in
Good stuff.
the
Yeah, I figured I had that right. Yeah, I just
you did,
that's
yeah.
very cool, very cool, very cool.
I got it right here, and in the time warp section there where he's floating through time, it kind of recaps or gives you a little bit of like what actually happened at the end of the movie that we didn't see, and you see the nurse resuscitating Elvis, and you see
Sure.
Elvis like actually taking his clothes off there and like dressing the mummy in his suit and lighting
There
fires
it
to
all
the
is.
corpse.
Mm-hmm. Excellent, excellent. Nice. Um, More on the humor. I love what you did with the hieroglyphic, if I'm pronouncing that right, hieroglyphic translations of what the mummy's saying. Some great stuff there.
Absolutely,
I bet you had a lot. Seems like you had a lot of fun with that.
that was yeah that turned out great. That was obviously inspired by the movie. Whenever Bubba Hotep would speak, they would translate what the hieroglyphics meant, and the hieroglyphics are
Mhm.
always very entertaining. And we got to give full credit to our letterer Taylor Esposito on that, who did a brilliant job with it. I loved what he did with the captions, making it look like a chainsaw in the beginning, and just from there, like he just really got into the spirit of both franchises. And so with the hieroglyphics, I was kind of leaning on Taylor a little bit. I was like, let's see what you can actually. Vincenzo, did you draw those? Now that I'm thinking about it,
Yes, I drew them, but I guess that Taylor Esposito, the letterer, took them and convert in something vectorial. I'm not sure about this, but I think he did some post production work on the words.
that's right. Yeah, this was 4 years ago, so memory's a little fuzzy on that. But yeah, it was a team effort.
Yeah, sure.
Yes,
Yeah,
it was very funny,
that's great.
because Baba said a lot of horrible words, and then it was funny to decide what kind of. In one panel, I drew a piece of shit, And
Yes.
then I sent it to Scott and asked Scott, is this okay? He told me, yes, it's fun, but make it more Egyptian. Okay, fine. Okay. I
Excellent.
was I was I was scared because I thought maybe it was too much for the
Mhm.
publisher, for Scott. I didn't know, but Scott was craziest that
Yeah,
I
sure.
thought.
Pushing the envelope.
And he told me, yes, he told me you can go crazy, but they need to be Egyptian. Okay, fine, it's good for me. Thank you.
Sure. Working together, was it a long distance thing, you and Scott and Vincenzo, or was it were you able to work together in person on the series, or was that
Yeah,
We met.
we eventually
We
met
work.
in New York Comic Con, but this was after the series was all said and done.
Mhm. Oh,
Yes,
right. Okay.
we
So you didn't meet until there was all. Yeah. Right. Right. Okay.
Hmm.
yes we did we did.
You met
Which is
after the
pretty
fact.
typical, yeah, of like working with
Typical.
Yes,
Yeah.
like
Right.
artists, and writers. Like, unless you happen to live in the same city, you're most likely
Yeah.
working just like from home, like we all do. And so, yeah, like, but we
Sure. Sure.
quickly got into a very good working relationship where we were just constantly chatting with each other offline, just like, without our editor knowing what we were chatting about, and kind of just like, bouncing ideas back and forth off of each other, which was a lot of fun.
Excellent. That's
yes.
great. That's great. I guess I just asked because Scott, you shared a photo. I think you ran into each other a couple of years ago. I remember seeing a photo of you two together. So I just wondered if you actually got to work together in person. That was all. But yeah.
Yes,
Yeah.
we met 1 year ago. 1 year, sorry, 1 year after we started the series. We started the series in November 2018, and then we met in
Mhm.
person in October 2019
Mhm.
during the New York Comic Con, and immediately we became friends because we are both stupid, both crazy, and both
Mhm.
super geek.
Yeah. Cool.
Before Mike is going on, I have two questions about the thing you mentioned. The first question is for Vincenzo. You say that you work digitally. So, as
Yes,
I said before, we connected. My dad worked in the comics business when in the '90s. So
yes,
everything was, I mean, by hand. And I
yes,
remember he did let's say the pencil, then the ink. Uh, so,
yes.
have you, let's say, different? How much different phases? I mean, for you are just layers. You do use
Mhm.
some kind of specific tool, like I don't know, the table. I don't remember the name of the instrument, the huge monitor with the pen. I don't remember
Okay,
the name. The
um,
Cintiq,
yes, the
maybe.
Cintiq.
Do
Yes,
you
the
use the
Cintiq.
Cintiq?
Yes,
Okay.
yes,
Yes,
yes.
because I have
Uh,
colleagues that use that. Uh, uh, so do you use thing like that? Do you have multiple passages? And how much? Let's say you talked about some effects you did on the
mhm,
color, and so my question is, how much you lose of it when it come to
mhm.
print? I mean,
Okay.
it's perfectly matching your work, the one that is
Yes.
printed, or it lose something, some kind of deep, or
No,
some kind of
okay.
color.
I'm lucky enough because my digital job is I try to have a traditional approach, even if I use the digital tools. Uh, my job in digital is very simple, to be honest. It's not too much effect. Okay, you don't read too much the digital use of some tools. I started my career in the French market, and I worked everything in traditional way with pencil, with brushes, with paper. Then my first job, totally in digital, was Army of Darkness, Bubba. Um, I choose it this way because I needed to be very fast, and the digital tools permit you or permit to me to be very fast. So I used my Cintiq, and then after the first issue, I bought an iPad Pro to
Hmm.
work also when I am out of office, when I am in the train, when I am in a vacation. Here I'm working with my iPad Pro. I don't think my printed version lose too much uh, because my work is very similar to my traditional work. I try to don't have too many differences between my traditional work and my digital work. So I feel very good with the printed version. Uh, of course, every artist, in my opinion, is not really happy with his job. Is not very happy with the printed version of his job. When I say my printed comics, I'm like, oh shit, this sucks. And so I try to do better the next time. But to be honest, my job is very similar in the printed version or in my on my workstation.
That's cool. And you talked even about time you put on this. This is a question for both of you. How long it takes between concept and the printing of the final product? I mean, it's just it's some months, 1 year, more than 1 year because you did the other stuff in the meantime.
Scott.
It was definitely not a year, or maybe for me it was because I've been thinking about it for years. But once we got the green light, it was just a matter of months. It all came together pretty quickly. Yeah, just everybody kind of, you know, hit the ground running. And so, yeah, it was a pretty smooth process, I gotta say, especially for a license thing, and not just one license, but two licenses. We always talk about this, and I've talked to our editor Kevin about it. Like, we're just blown away by how smooth of a process it was. Because sometimes there's things, delays, licensors hold things up, and that was not the case. Like, it seemed like everybody was just on board with the project from the word go, and so it was a pretty smooth process. I guess that's the long answer. The short answer would be maybe it was 4 issues, so maybe about 5 months it took, something like that.
Yes.
Um,
Yes.
yeah.
Yes. My part of the job is a bit more fast because is after the concept of the story. I received the complete script, so I have just to convert the script in images. Sometimes you are lucky enough to have the good deadlines, to have 5 weeks for 20 pages, but sometimes you are unlucky, totally unlucky, and you have 3 weeks for 24 pages. So I'm fast enough, like artists, but sometimes I would like to have more time to think about my job, to think how to translate the script in images, to give something more to the pages, to the script. But this is not always possible. So for me, it's the same more or less. A 4 issues miniseries took 4 or 5 months. It depends. When we worked to Army of Darkness Bubba, we had some good deadlines, and we worked it in 5 months, I guess, more or less. And indeed, it was a very good job. Um, as I told before, not, I'm never happy with my job, but this series remain of one of my favorite, because for that time, for my ability at that time, it was the best I was able to do. And so this is something very important to me. And the series came out very good, in my opinion.
Yeah, I gotta echo that. This was by far the most fun I've ever had making comics, like without a
Yes.
doubt.
Yes, we had a lot of fun. We had a lot of fun, to be honest.
It really was. Sometimes making comics can be very hard and very frustrating, but this was just, it just felt like we were making fan fiction, but they were giving us the go ahead to make it official. So it was just like, it just feels like official fan fiction. It's like, this is what I would have written anyways, you know, whether I got paid to or not.
Yeah, but
Uh,
for me, the best part to work on this series was that when I was finishing my last pages of an issue, Scott already had wrote the next issue. So I didn't have um, uh, mm, spaces without job. I was always on the route. So I was always working, okay, and this permitted to me to be always with my mind on the project. It was the very funny part, because we had the opportunity to organize everything in the better way possible.
Absolutely. And I know I've mentioned this before in previous interviews, but Bruce Campbell is aware of this series. He actually tweeted out about it when the
Yes.
covers for issue 2 were revealed and put out online. I guess they caught his attention and he tweeted about it. And his response "What the flying hell?" was the tweet. And so I was like, well, that's awesome that he knows about this, first of all, but I'm stealing that line of his and I'm putting it in the book. And so in issue 3, we actually have Ash on Elvis's jet flying, and he says, "What the flying hell?" just like the real Ash did. So that was fun to kind of, you know, pay tribute to him as well, and get that line in there. So I was pretty blown away that he actually was aware of it. And Kirk Hammett too, just oddly enough, like, who I know is a
of
big
Metallica.
horror geek, but yeah, the Metallica guitarist,
Yeah. Wow.
he tweeted about it as well. So that was like, wow, people are actually paying attention to this thing.
That's awesome.
So that was
Really
a highlight.
cool. Really cool.
And I can
Yeah.
say that getting a retweet from Bruce Campbell is a very, let's say, complex
Yes.
matter, because
Mm.
it
The-
happens a couple of times to me, but it's not so easy caught his attention. So
yes.
Mhm.
kudos for that. I mean,
Also
Absolutely.
because in the book, the characters, both Ash and Elvis, they had different voices, because Scott was able to catch the way of Ash speech, or the way of Elvis in the Bruce Campbell interpretation speech. They were the same character in some ways, but even two different characters, and it was very funny. I remember some good reviews about the series that spoke about this, the voices of the characters, because they have some way to act, some way to speak, very different but very specific.
I
Well,
appreciate
they're
that.
both kings, so they, they're
Yeah.
both kings,
Totally.
aren't they?
Yes.
And that's the name of the game when it comes to working on a licensed property that's not yours, and they're pre-established characters that everybody knows and have very distinct voices. And for me, that's the job, is to try and capture their voice and the tone of the series as closely as possible. So you're not hearing my voice in there, you're hearing the characters. That should be the goal. And the way I achieved that I just constantly had Army of Darkness and Bubba Ho-Tep playing on my TV on a loop while I was writing the outlines for it, and just like and also the Ash versus Evil Dead series as well. I was watching that as well during that time for inspiration, to kind of just like get a feel for just hearing, just constantly having his voice in my head, so that when I was writing, putting words into his mouth, like it felt authentic. That was definitely the marching order. I felt like that I'd given myself, that it has to sound like the characters, otherwise people will see right through it, and it'll feel like fan fiction as opposed to an officially licensed property.
Scott, with Ash the author, was that sort of like a result of your work working with Dynamite on Bubba Ho-Tep Army of Darkness?
Yeah, a little bit.
Yeah.
Oh, I'm sorry, you cut out a little bit there at the end, but
no, that's okay. Go ahead. Just wondering if that you ended up doing Ash the author as a result of working with Dynamite on this series.
Yes. Yeah. The funny thing about that is that was proposed before I even worked on Army of Darkness, Bubba Ho-Tep crossover. That was, to give you a little backstory, I was working for a company called Humble Bundle. They're mostly known for bundling games together, but they started to get into bundling other things like digital content of like books and comics and stuff like that. And so through talking to Nick Barucci, again, the president publisher of Dynamite, and he'd known for a while that I wanted to work on Army of Darkness, or Evil Dead in general. I made no secret of that to him. I was like, man, if I ever get a chance, an opportunity, I really want to write for that character. And so I guess we had pitched to him at one point, could we do some Humble Bundle exclusives, something that is only available in these bundles, that people have to buy the bundle in order to get this exclusive comic. And so he had pitched that to us, and then and I said, that sounds great, I would love to do that. And then nothing came of it at the time until after the Army of Darkness Bubba Ho-Tep crossover. And then they reapproached me about that, and they said, hey, we're actually going to do some exclusive digital comics in the next bundle. Are you still interested in doing that? And I said, of course, yeah, let's do it. So I came up with an idea based on my friend Kelly Allen, who worked at Humble Bundle. She actually made her way into the comic as a character, because that was sort of not necessarily a requirement, but Nick thought it would be a good idea because Kelly ran the books, the digital books section of Humble Bundle. He's like, oh, let's have her have a cameo. So that kind of spurred me on to be like, oh, how can I incorporate her into the story? I know she works in publishing, or she used to work in New York in that world. She should be Ash's publicist for / agent, I guess, like his editor on this book that he's doing a book tour of. And that kind of spurred the idea from there. So yeah, that was something that had been like long gestating, that finally, after the crossover was said and done, came to fruition. So that was really cool that Nick remembered that and reached out to me to do that.
Very cool. And it Ash the author does still surface from time to time on the Humble Bundle website. So
keep an
eye on. I think I've seen it on there about 3 or 4 times since it came out about 4 years ago. So excellent.
Yeah, I guess it's kind of a rare one to find, according to
yes.
Diet here.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah. I thought we could look at some of the various covers that we used on the issues for Army of Darkness Bubba Ho-Tep. You mentioned that you did have a bit of choice when it came to artist with Vincenzo. Did you have any say or involvement or input, either of you, with the covers?
I had no involvement in choosing of the artists. The artists were already pre-chosen.
I see.
Which was fine, because I think Dynamite kind of keeps a stable of artists that they like to rotate, including Vincenzo, to be like, hey, you're on cover duties for this. Like, so they would have them basically do a cover for each issue, a variant. And we got really spoiled with our cover artists. I was really pleased with how those turned out. And so while yes. Classic. So while I can't take credit for the artist selection, Kevin did ask me to submit some ideas for cover concepts to him, he's like, "Do you have any ideas, like based on what the story is for each issue? Can you come up with some cover concepts?" So I did send some of those along to him, and I was happy to see that quite a few of my ideas did actually make it onto the covers, including the one of Ash holding up the chainsaw, and you can see the reflection of Elvis in his chainsaw. I was kind of inspired by an old Marvel comic of I think a Todd McFarlane one. Yeah,
This one, right? This one.
yeah, Wolverine and his claws. You can see the reflection of Hulk. So that was definitely an inspiration. So yeah, some of those covers, I was just like, yeah, we should have one where they're in a car, just like flying by, like the main cover you just showed, or on the plane, like have stuff like that. So yeah, I was able to toss a few ideas his way, and they used a few.
That's really cool. I did put together a bit of a clip slideshow, if you will, of the covers. Emanuele, did you want to play that?
Yes. Let's say you can. You have a button on the bottom. There is a present or something like show, and if you click there and then you click on the file on share screen, you can share your screen. Or if it is a video, you can share directly the video, and then going to see it in the studio, so I can show it to anyone.
Excellent. Okay. That's cool.
While you're doing
I
that,
can
I
get that.
wanted to show off one of my favorite cover concepts, which was inspired by that episode of The Twilight Zone where he's looking out the window and he sees like the gremlin on the wing of the plane. So that's really inspired. And I love what Robert Hack did as well with all of his covers. He's the Chilling Adventures of Sabrina artist, and he
Robert Hack, yes, that.
Yeah, all of his covers too. I just like nailed it. Just knocked it out of the park.
Yeah, those are the ones I actually have issue 2, 3, and 4. Yeah. I love what he did there with the VHS cover and the movie posters, and yeah, very cool, very cool.
Michael, if you want, I download the
video.
I downloaded the one you sent to me. If it's the same one, I can show it.
Cool.
I downloaded it from our chat. Awesome. Yes. Wait a moment.
Yeah,
because
right.
I'm going to take the shorter one. A moment to just understand. Okay, here it is. I'm going to show it to you. Here it is. Correct me if it is the wrong one. Here it is.
Yes.
Maybe I have to. Oh no, okay, it's working. Okay, it's moving by itself. There is this slideshow of the covers.
So Emma here did a reference more of an independent artist.
Yeah, she's of the famous Kubert clan.
That was used for the trade paperback cover.
Yep.
As well.
That one's awesome.
Yeah.
That was another one where I was like, they got to be piled up on top of the scarabs. That's great. I love that. And I was really, I was blown away that Tom Mandrake, whose art is there, he's the co-creator, the original artist of Black Mask from Batman. So that was really cool to get him involved too.
It's a huge amount of covers. I mean, it's all the variants and stuff like that, right?
Yes. Dynamite.
That's right.
Usually Dynamite. Usually Dynamite do a lot of variant covers. Robert Hack's style.
Yeah, I really enjoyed Robert Hack's.
Amazing. It's amazing.
Yeah, I was definitely drawn to Robert Hack's for sure.
Yes.
And I think
okay, it's ended. It's ended. Yeah. Okay, I'm going to remove it.
That's all the covers I'm aware of, anyway. Yeah. Great. No, that's some cool art there. Very cool. I think that's most of my questions. I mean, yeah. we do have the upcoming 30th anniversary series Army of Darkness Forever by Tony Fleets coming out in October. I believe he's writing and doing the drawing for that as well, doing the art for that as well. So
I don't know if he's the artist on that, but I know he is the writer.
Oh,
Yeah.
okay, right. Yep.
He's been focusing more on writing lately. Tony's actually a good pal of mine going back to the IDW days, because he used to work on My Little Pony comics. And I knew that he was a big horror guy from his series Stray Dogs at Image. And he does this amazing, I know you've seen it, but he does the Evil Dead inspired cover. It's just in tribute to that, with using his dog characters of the original Evil Dead poster. He was doing a whole bunch of horror inspired covers from different movies. Yes. Yeah. And so I have to admit, there's a little, I haven't said this publicly yet, but that was something that I had in my back pocket, that if I ever got a chance to pitch on Army of Darkness again, I was going to pitch to them to do a sequel to exactly what he's doing, the alternate version of Army of Darkness, where it's the more post-apocalyptic version of him waking up like 100 years too late, and he's got the Rip Van Winkle beard, and so I just had this idea, like, man, wouldn't that be so cool to pick up where that leaves off and do something and just tell that story? Like, I would love to get a crack at that. And so when they announced the series, it was a little bittersweet. I was like, oh man, like I won't get the chance to be the guy to do that. But I'm so happy. If it couldn't have been me, I can't think of a better guy than Tony to tackle that, because he obviously has great love for the franchise, and he's a great writer. If you've ever read Stray Dogs, if you haven't, I highly recommend that. You should check it out.
I highly recommend Stray Dogs. Great story.
Yes, yeah. So Tony will definitely knock it out of the park. But there was a small part of me that was just like, oh, when I saw the news, I was like, man, I wish I could have been the one to tell that story. But I feel so fortunate that I got to be the one to cross over Army of Darkness with Bubba Ho-Tep and tell that story, because I know there's other people that probably felt the same way about me when they saw that announcement. They're like, oh man. In fact, I have had people to say that to me, but that they were pleased with how it turned out. So that felt good. So,
is the one you're talking about? Because I don't know the comics is this one cover, or is a complete
that's one of them. Yeah.
Tony Fleets did that one.
Well, I think that was actually a little different. I think that was he did a series of covers for Dynamite, like a cover program where he was doing the art and incorporating his characters into some of the Dynamite properties. And then he had built that relationship with Dynamite, and then from there it just became a thing where they're like, hey, do you want to work on Army of Darkness? And I guess he had that idea too and pitched it to them. So I'm really excited to check that out as well and see what he does with it.
Me too.
I was sure about
it. Be proud of the work you did with the Army of Darkness and Bubba Ho-Tep. It was a mighty good tale.
Thank you.
Appreciate it.
I have a more technical question coming back to the realization of Bubba Ho-Tep Army of Darkness comics. Always given my previous experience, I mean, in my experience, there were different stages of the realization of a comics. So there is a writer that just write down the story, then another step in which another writer that is not the same of the first of the plot, that's just write and define completely how the graphic of the comic should be. I mean, there is just written here. This is this kind of square of the sides in which this specific scene with I don't know with this balloon. I mean, the complete, let's say, explosion of any single page. So the first one, we call it I can give you the let's say the Italian war for those. The first one is Lo Scrittore, the writer. The second one is the say if I is the player is the script writer. I mean, the screenwriter. This is the difference. And then the obviously the illustrator that draw. So Scott, you have both roles, or there is someone in the middle that adjusts, or it's directly Vincenzo that take the plot and trans- transfer it on the pages.
Yeah, in our case, I guess I came up with the story and scripted it, and so
Okay.
I handled both of those roles. Yeah, sometimes there will be a case of maybe there's a head writer on Batman or something like that, or some other property, and they have a story concept or idea, and then but they are maybe too busy to write it, and so they'll pass it off to another writer, and so they'll get story by credit, and then somebody will get written by credit. But in this case, yeah, I conceived of the plot and wrote it and handed it off to Vincenzo, who made it look even better than I could have imagined.
Thank you, man. Yes, usually in the American industry, uh, if you are on a small series like a mini series, like our Army of Darkness Babotep, usually there is just one writer because the writer think about the idea, the concept, and then he directly write the script. Then there is me or the artist. Then there is the colorist, and at the end the letterer. So we are four people on every issue. Then we have the editorial part. We have the editor that is our boss. But in Italian way, especially in Bonelli, there are many stages. There are a lot of people on one single issue, and even if because the single Bonelli issue is 94 pages, is huge, but
Yeah.
in the American industry, we have usually 20, 22, 24 pages, more or less. Sometimes you have some special issues with 30 or 40 pages, but often you have the 20, 24 pages issue.
Yeah, I remember my dad, let's say, the drawing or inking 1 page for day, something like that.
Yes, yes,
and
it's a
and
huge
when he
giant.
was, yes, and he was, and in the past he was even correcting other jobs, other guys' job, but
Yes,
as I said, it's always by hand, so they used to draw stuff, cut it, and paste physically
yes, yes, yes,
on the original draw. And
yes,
excuse me, if I understood correctly, in Army of Darkness versus Ho-Tep, you did even the lettering part, right? Or not?
yes. No, the part was by another guy that was
Okay,
Taylor Esposito.
okay. And so you give him the files and he work on the digital, right?
Yes, yes.
Cool.
I send a high resolution file to a private server of the publisher, and
Mm-hmm.
then the editor take care to send the files to the letterer, to the colorist. But it's something that the editor does himself. I just have to upload the file on server.
Cool, cool. That's cool.
Yes, it's very cool.
Do you know that Bruce Campbell puts the nail on the sequel of Bubba Death in cinemas? I mean, in theaters, because age ago, I mean, before Ash vs Evil Dead was cancelled, there was this prequel in air. Say this rumor about Bubba Nosferatu that is not the same of Bubba and the Cosmic Blocksuckers, And there is this interview I found it. I mean, I remember it, but I found it now, no. And Bruce Campbell says something like regarding the first movie. Okay, I told the creators that I didn't want to dance around it anymore. I feel that the first one was a nice little gem, and you don't have to make a sequel for everything. Don Coscarelli, God bless him, go make it. Get somebody else. The other on Perlman at one point. Knock yourself out. And then he wrote on Twitter, I have officially retired from playing Elvis as well. Joe and Don both know this. To me, each character has a lifespan. Elvis was best as a one-shot deal, an iconic character in a really unique setting, guided by a great director. Why repeat? So, what do you think about this? I mean, do you agree? Do you think that a sequel could be a good movie, or do you think that maybe it's a little bit forced? So maybe Bruce Campbell did a good choice in this. More on the fun perspective, obviously.
But personally, I think that if you do something very cool one time, you have to stay one time and not try to do anything else, because you risk to destroy everything. You risk to destroy the good job you did before. So for me, it's better to don't do the sequel.
Yeah, I think in some cases a sequel can build upon and even surpass the original in some ways. There's very few examples of this, but like The Dark Knight springs to mind, or Aliens. I think depending on who you are, like that may have won up the first one. There's very few sequels I think that get it right, but I think there is something to be said for if a movie is, you feel it's like perfect, like it doesn't require a sequel. It's just kind of like leave it alone and just like let it be its own thing without having to try and capitalize on it. So I understand where Bruce Campbell is coming from, where he feels like what we did was great, and it's really hard to try and recapture that magic and do it again. So but I can also understand like wanting to give the fans more of what they love, and I know that the Bubba Nosferatu proposed sequel was in development hell for a very long time. They had I think Paul Giamatti on board at one point as like Colonel Tom Parker. He was going to play that role, and I thought that could have been very interesting when I read about the plot. What I really wanted to do, and this is something I was trying to pitch to IDW, but they rejected it. They're like, "No, we're done with Bubba Ho-Tep." But I wanted to do a one-shot called Bubba Nosferatu, and it would have been Elvis like on the set of a movie, shooting one of his movies or something, and then there were actually like she-vampires, which was the plot of that story, like behind the scenes that had like made their way onto the set, and then he finds himself in the movie of Bubba Nosferatu. So it's kind of like a backdoor way of telling that story without actually telling the story.
That's great. That's
Yeah.
great.
Yes.
I never got a shot at doing that, but maybe one day.
Do you
As far as
think
the
you
movie's
will?
concerned, I think they've left it too long. I think it's been
I
too
think
long
so.
now, and yeah, and I don't think it would be well received, and I don't like what it would do to the story that you guys made as well.
Well,
It's kind of
that's very, very nice. That's
retcon.
very kind of you.
And I have a question. Have you any plan to work together again on something for Dark Horse? And have you any project, or obviously, if you can disclose that, to work on any other new comics related to Army of Darkness?
I'm glad you asked. Yeah, Vincenzo and I, our working relationship continues to this day. We're still developing an original concept. After we got done working on the Army of Darkness Bubba Ho-Tep crossover, we enjoyed working with each other so much, and it was such a good working relationship, and we became quite friendly. that it just felt natural to continue that relationship. He really inspired me during the course of that series, and so I had sort of like the germination of an idea, just like, starting to come to life. And once he said, "Yeah, I'd love to work on something with you," then I was like, "Yeah," like that really got my creative juices flowing. And so I started creating an idea for another horror inspired series with monsters. That I was like, well, Vincenzo is the perfect person to draw this. I can't think of anybody better and who I'd rather work with on this. So that is something that we're still pursuing, getting off the ground, and hopefully you'll hear more about that this coming fall.
Ah, that's great. That's
Yes.
great.
Yeah, but as far as Army of Darkness, I can't answer that. I don't know what my future holds in terms of being able to work on that property again. Hopefully, at some point, that would be great. But this was a dream project in itself that I'm so fortunate to have worked on. So, if this is my last ride with Ash, or Ash the author was technically the last one, then I feel at least I got to check that one off my bucket list.
That's cool. That's cool.
Yes, we hope to put our flag on this project. Maybe we have to wait.
Yeah, well, Vincenzo's killing it on Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles right now, so he's living another dream as we speak.
Yes,
Yeah.
yes. I'm currently working on the ongoing series of the Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles, and this is something totally crazy for me because the turtles were one of the main reasons I choose to do this job when I was a kid. So when I had the opportunity to start to work on this title, it was incredible for me. And but as Scott told, also for me, I had the idea to start working on something personal. The project Scott was talking about before is one of these personal projects. We worked on it for a long time, and so we are trying to make something very good with this. Uh, we we took a lot of time to create it. We took a lot of time to choose the right publishers for this. So this is another dream project for us.
I suppose you all are of the same age, circa. I'm 42, almost 42. I think you are born in the 80s,
I'm
something
uh,
like that, right?
I'm
Maybe
39 here.
36.
Same.
86. Okay, you are like
36.
my 86. Okay, you are like my brother. I have a little
Yes.
brother by 5 years. Yes. In fact, I remember he loved a lot when Ninja Turtles the cartoon comes out in Italy. I was a little bit let's say older, uh, probably
Not too much. Not too
not too
much.
much.
Yeah,
Yes,
it's not.
yes. It was not, but I started loving there. I mean, I love a lot the comics because it's a little bit more respect to the cartoon I seen when I was younger
Yes.
because it's a little bit more dark. I like that.
Yes. Dark.
I like
Yes.
that.
Very dark.
Yes, that side of the Ninja Turtles because we are used to see. I mean, when I was a child, we used to see like a nice cartoon with always happy characters, while in the real, let's say, version, the real comic,
Yes.
they are
Yes.
very
The,
cruent.
Yeah,
I mean, they are
gritty
dark.
and
They
dark.
are,
Mm.
yeah, yeah,
Yeah, I was a
yes.
huge Ninja Turtles kid. I My entry point was the animated series, and then the toys, of course, and then eventually the live action Jim Henson movies. And then it wasn't
Live
until I
action
think my
movie.
first Ninja Turtles comic was like one of the Archie ones, which was also very kid friendly. It wasn't until years later that I discovered the Mirage comics, the original ones that Kevin and Pete did together. And then and both me and Vincenzo have been fortunate enough now to meet Kevin Eastman, one of our heroes, one of the co-creators, and work with him on Ninja Turtles. Me in the sense of helping to promote it and set up interviews for Kevin and Vincenzo. He's a collaborator of his now. He's a one, working
Yes,
directly with him on
yes,
it.
No,
yes.
you
We
are
worked
living
on.
you are
Sorry,
living a
sorry.
dream. You are living a dream. I
Yes,
mean,
yes. I worked with him on some covers, and then we met in person at the last New York Comic Con, and maybe we will meet again at the next New York Comic Con. And yes, I'm living the Vincenzo Kid dream. It's incredible for me because you have to do a lot of work, a lot of way to be at this point. It's not too easy, and so when I reached this goal, it was very important to me in my career, in my life, and even in my passions. And so yes, I'm very good with this.
good. I love this. I
Thank you.
mean, I love art in all these means. I mean, as I said, I grew up with this kind of stuff. So, I mean,
Great.
I sadly never been able to do. I mean, when I was a child, I loved to draw, but then my father come and tell you have to be an accountant. But at the end, so I have studied another stuff, not artistic, skills and stuff. But the life is strange, and now I'm working in the video games industry. So at the end,
That's
the
fine.
life is goes straight. I mean, I don't. I'm not an artist. I'm more a developer. So I mean, that's fantasy. But I work with a lot of creative people. So I mean, it's a very
That's great.
different ending. But I mean. I
It's
always
great.
love my home is full of comics, board games, video games. I mean, like you. I'm a geek, so we are
Yeah.
all on the same let's say on the same ship, on the same on the same board.
Same wavelength for sure.
Yeah, exactly,
We're all
exactly.
fans.
Okay.
Mhm.
Before leaving, let you go, I will like just to tell to the audience here. We are going to have some lives in the next week. Probably the next week we are going to have another couple of artists. In this case, cinema artists. We are going to have Alistair Gillis and Link Choi that they worked both on. The last installment of Evil Dead Rise. They were concept artists, and one of the two guys, I think, Link, he worked even on drawing the pages of the new Necronomicon, and maybe even of some pages of the 2013 Necronomicon from Fede Alvarez. So as this to say that I love art. I mean, the previous week we had Graham Humphreys, that is the author of the infamous poster of the first Evil Dead movie in UK, the movie that there was banned. So as soon I can, when I can, I try to bring in artists because I mean, you have a lot of stories, you have a lot of background to tell us, and I love this kind of stories. I mean, they are full of interest for me and
Mhm.
even for anyone that is listening.
And,
So
good for the
I would like,
imagination.
yes, exactly, exactly.
Imagination.
Yes, exactly. So I will I like to thank you for your participation.
Thank
I
you.
mean, I don't want. I mean,
My
if you
pleasure.
have something other interesting about your future projects, because or other stuff you want to tell. I mean, in case you can tell us. Or I don't want. I mean, I know I don't want to cut you out. I mean, uh, on the contrary, we can finish here the live, and thank you anyone that is watching. There is a lot of people watching
Yeah.
here,
Thank you,
leaving his
everybody.
leaving a the comment.
Thank you, guys.
Don't leave as soon as I close the live, because we can have just a little cheat after the closing. And so thank you everyone, and have a nice evening, afternoon, and morning, because anyone here
Good
have
morning,
a
good afternoon,
different.
and good night.
Yes,
That's
exactly. Today we are.
nice.
Bye bye.
Thank you guys.
Bye.
Thanks,
Thank you
Bye,
everyone.
guys.
everyone. Thanks,
Thank
Bye
you.
bye.
for
Bye
everything
bye.
you guys do and supporting the work. And we'll talk to you later.
Bye bye.
Thank you. Bye. See you.